Today we will talk about the project. The objective of the project is to incorporate what you have learned in this course to analyze the customer base of a company, brand positioning of the company, brand identity, consumers' perception of the brand, gap analysis between the brand and each customer segmentation, and create a brand strategy for each of the consumer segments. The project requirements include either working in a group or by yourself. You can focus on the company you work for or another company. You will create a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation that you will then turn into a 5 to 7 minute TED Talk type of presentation. You will then create your own YouTube post based on your presentation. You will upload it to the class YouTube channel, and you can use Camtasia or any other editing program. Your other classmates will evaluate your YouTube presentation and make suggestions. The project requirements also include that you will be given an outline, but the final decision on how to present it is up to you. You must incorporate the material that you have learned throughout the course into your presentation. However, only use what makes sense for your presentation. We will use the 5-wine paper as the example for the project. However, you're not allowed to use fine wines as your example unless you work for a fine wine company. The first thing we will talk about is a semantic square. And in the fine wine example, we have both the left side and the right side. The left side are those people who truly enjoy drinking, and while the right side are those who truly enjoy being expert on wines. Let's first talk about the enthusiast. Who is an enthusiast? An enthusiast is somebody who loves to talk about wines, the wines they enjoy, the one that they love. Not necessarily that they have an expertise on it, but they just enjoy talking about it. An expert, on the other hand, is a person who has the expertise and knows all the details about wine, know the regions, know the taste, know the flavor, and can better describe the wine than most of us. A drinker, on the other hand, is not necessarily an enthusiast in terms of wanting to share it, but a person just enjoys drinking for drinking. They might do it by themselves, sitting alone in a bar, or somewhere where they can consume it by themselves. A novice, on the other hand, is a person who knows they don't know a lot about wines, but many times they're seeking knowledge from experts. What does this line mean, or these two red boxes mean? This means these are different, not necessarily opposite, but with the same level of strength. For example, the enthusiast is very positive, very forceful in what they believe in, and an expert is at the top of their game. Both are very high in this scale. On the other hand, a drinker is an internal enthusiast who doesn't express it externally, and a novice is a person that really just doesn't have the knowledge about wines, and they know it. These are the scale from low to high. The drinker is a person that keeps everything inside but enjoys the drink. The enthusiast person not only enjoys it, but likes to share the experience with others. On the right side, the novice is a person who knows they don't know a lot about wine, while the expert knows everything about it. These two red boxes are polar opposites. The opposite of an enthusiast is a novice, while the opposite of a drinker is an expert. This is how far you can be away from the other. A connoisseur, on the other hand, is a mixture of an enthusiast and an expert. Not only do they have the knowledge about wine, but they enjoy expressing their love for wines to others. An event goer is a person consume wines not necessarily because they're a drinker or a novice, but many times they're doing it because they are in a social event and that's the right thing to do. So they really don't have the characteristics of either being a drinker or a novice. What does this mean? We can take the previous chart and do a 2x2 grid that will look something like this. So if you notice, the opposite of an expert is a drinker, and the opposite of an enthusiast is a novice. What are these question marks that we are seeing? So let's go back to the previous slide. Do you see the space between the enthusiast and the drinker? Well, you could actually add another group of consumers. And do you see the space between novice and expert? You could actually add another group of consumers there as well. Let's talk about how to define a brand. We call this the branded identity prism model. Let's first talk about the constructive source. The constructive source is the image of the brand. The constructor receiver is the image of the consumer that the brand is trying to create. The externalization is how the brand and the consumer is going to be reflected outward, while the internalization is how the brand and the consumer is going to reflect internally. Let's first talk about the brand physique, or really the material of the brand. These are all the physical attributes. Brand personality. Brand personalities many times is from the founder. Think about some of the greatest brands like Apple, Steve Jobs. We believe that those two is reflective of each other. And you can put other brands into that as well, such as Marriott and JW Marriott. The JW Marriott reflects the Marriott brand. Relationship mode is how the brand wants to have the relationship with the consumer. What does this mean? Some brands want to be casual with the consumer. Some brands want to have much more of a formal relationship, while other brands want to be seen as the expert to the consumer. And there's many other types of relationships. The culture is the DNA and values. What is the company known for? We can think of many brands out there, such as Starbucks. What do we think about the DNA and values of Starbucks? Many times we think Starbucks care a lot about their employees, they care about the environment, they care about social issues. So that's reflected in their brand. The customer reflective image is not necessarily the actual image of your consumer, but the image that you want to create. For example, you might want to create an image of someone consuming wealth or having wealth. That might not necessarily be the actual consumer, but that's the one that you would like to portray. Customer self-concept. How does your brand improve the self-concept of the consumer? Now let's put this all together. If you can see that you have the identity brand in the middle, and then you have the 6 different market groups on the outside. Every one of these, every consumer will have their own identity brand that they care about the brand. For example, the enthusiast really cares maybe about the label, the color, the flavoring, while the expert cares more about the region of the world it's being produced, the history of it. Whereas a drinker really just cares that it tastes great, so they only care about one physical attribute of the wine brand. So every one of these consumer groups will care about different aspects of the brand prism. And I want you to think about this for a moment. What would be the brand prism for the enthusiast? This is not necessarily what the brand is trying to portray or to project, but what the enthusiast cares about. So what part of these 6 areas does the enthusiast actually care about? And then we need to go through each one of these and think about them. What do you do next? The next thing you want to do is you got the brand identity prism that the brand identify, and now you're looking at the consumer identity prism, what they care about. And now you're trying to see, is there a gap? Is there a gap between the brand identity and the consumer identity? And you would go through each of the different ones. After you figure out the brand and understand where the gaps are located, you then need to create a brand strategy for each consumer group. Sometimes there might be one brand strategy, while in other times you might want to do some advertising where you're talking towards the experts, or in another group to the enthusiasts. These are the different things you should think about when developing your TED Talk presentation. First, you need to put a title, introduce yourselves, introduce the slide of your company, create the semantic square of their brand consumers, brand identity prism for the brand, create an identity model for each consumer group, create a gap model, and finally create a brand strategy for each consumer group. If you click on this link, it will take you to a free trial of Camtasia that you can use to create your own video. Or as we said earlier, you can use any software editing tool that will allow you to create your own YouTube video. My understanding, the YouTube site also have an editing tool built in. The project will take approximately 40 hours. You can divide the project up among your team members, or you can do it by yourself. You'll be judged on 3 criteria. Professional edited video. You have incorporated what you have learned into your TED Talk video. You have convinced me through your argument that you made a strong analysis.